All right, this lesson is on some of the repair tools in Photoshop, such as the clone tool, and then also such as the healing brush, and then some of the tools within this compartment here, okay? Okay, now so I have these images that I can work with. If we go over here to the clone tool, I'm going to go ahead and click that one, and I'm going to zoom in, and now I am here, and I want to get rid of this copy right here. Now normally you wouldn't go and do this. This is just the example that I use because it requires a little bit of skill to get in here and do this. And with your clone tool, you have different options that you can use here. If you want to make sure that you copy everything at full strength, you leave that at 100% opacity, and that way it'll grab 100% of this texture and place it on top wherever you paint it. Okay, another thing is the flow. You usually want to leave that at 100%. It controls the flow when you're painting. Okay, and now mode, you want to make sure you're on normal. By default, all of these will be set like this, okay? Now I'm going to go, and you can change the size of your brush here, or once you already have a brush selected, you can use your right bracket key will make it go bigger, and your left bracket key will make it go smaller. Okay, so go ahead and adjust your brush. I'm going to use a size that kind of covers up this section, but that isn't too big where it starts selecting things that I don't want from my sample. Now, being on that layer, this is the layer for the dirt. I'm going to go ahead and rename it, might as well. Okay, for that layer, I'm going to go and make sure that it's selected on that layer, and I'm going to hold down my Option key on a Mac or my Alt key on a PC, and I'm going to click once, and what it's doing is it's sampling. It's taking a sample of that texture so that when I paint, when I just click, hold down, and drag, it starts pulling some of that texture. Now there's a little crosshair right above my brush that you may or may not be able to see. You should be able to see it when you zoom into it. But that crosshair there is basically telling you where it's sampling from. Now by nature, as long as you don't let go of your mouse, it's going to be aligned with how you're moving. So the crosshair is moving. You can see it there. Okay. Now you'll notice here, I don't want it necessarily to sample where that crosshair is because I actually need to get some of that black information there for it to work. So notice how that grabbed some of that texture and put it here where I needed it to be black. So oftentimes when you use this tool, you need to sample often. Like I'm going to hold down my Alt key to sample, or my Option key on a Mac. I'm going to click once. I've sampled it. I release my key. And now I'm just going to click once. I'm just kind of pasting it over. I'm just clicking, clicking. Now here where I come to an area that's unique, I want to sample. I want to copy some of this area here right above it to put it down here. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to hold down my Option or my Alt key again. And then I've just sampled that, and now I can move it. And you can see that the sample, it'll carry an example of it with it. See, so I can line it up. All right, and you can just kind of use that, okay? And similarly here, I want to make sure, see right here, my brush is too big. If I grab that area, it's going to grab some of this black, and I might not want that. So I'm going to make my brush smaller using my left bracket, or you can go up here again and change that. I'm going to go ahead and Option click here, and then I'm going to again, and then I can do as such. Okay, and here I'm going to grab a little bit of this black I just sampled, and then I'm just going to click it there. Okay, so this is the basic function of how your clone tool works. Now, there's other tools that can do similar things a lot quicker, but they're also not as accurate. So sometimes when you need the accuracy, your clone tool is your best method. Now, here's this tool. It's called the Spot Healing Brush. And what you can do is for this one, it automatically reads the information around it, and on one stroke, without having to click and sample anything, it'll take information from the image that's around it and try to replace it. So I'm just going to go ahead and click, hold down, and drag right across it and release. And notice it grabs some of the texture. Now, it didn't do exactly what I wanted. There's some places where it's not quite working, but to the common person, you know, that didn't know there was something here, they may never notice it. There are some little areas that I missed here, and I could go ahead and just click on those and get them sampled. Now I'm going to zoom into this just a bit so that you can see. It's a little pixelated, but you can see kind of this smudgy kind of grayish effect here that happened that you don't have here. That's kind of what you're going to possibly get when you use this tool. It's a lot faster, but it's not as accurate, and it kind of does some of those smudgy thingies. But you could also do this in one sweep and then use it in combination with your clone tool and then get rid of some of that by cloning some of this texture in those areas to kind of cover that up so you don't get that. Okay? So now another tool, other than the spot healing brush, we also have the healing brush tool. Go to this image over here. Now I want to make sure that when I go over to this image that I select the image that it actually is, which is the old lady here. Okay, I just renamed it. And then with this one, you do want to sample the image. So I'm just going to hold down the Alt or Option key, click once, and then do this. And now it's specifying, very similar to the clone tool, what it is that you're selecting from. The difference with this tool and the clone tool and what it's doing right now is that it actually takes kind of like a merger, whereas the clone tool just directly copies and pastes. This tool kind of takes a little bit of the information from underneath and then a little bit of the information that you're going on top, and it's merging the two so that it's a little bit less dramatic, okay, so that it's not as apparent. I'm going to go ahead and click here because these were some areas that were left. See, so you can use it. You can either just dab, click, 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 or you can swipe across it just as we did here. So I'm going to sample here, and then I'm just going to swipe across it. Be careful because notice here my crosshair up there is going into that other spot, and now it's doing that. And notice it merged the two, okay? So we don't want to do that. So if this is the case and you don't need something to follow a certain pattern, then you're probably better off using the spot healing brush, the one that doesn't require you to sample any information. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my brush bigger by using my right bracket, and I'm just going to swipe across it, and you can see how it works very nicely. Okay, so whereas this might not be as appropriate for this image, or it might give you a little bit more trouble here because there's too many textures. On plain textures like backgrounds like this, you could usually use this tool better without having to go through the hassle of sampling similar information from the picture to then clone onto here. And the difference between the healing brush, the spot healing brush, and then the healing brush is that since the healing brush does allow you to sample from another image, you can, in theory, sample from a different image than just the one that you're on. So I can go into, say, for instance, this image here. I'm going to go onto the dirt, and I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key, and I'm going to click once to sample. And then I'm going to go back to my old lady layer. You got to make sure you select on the layer, otherwise what you want to happen isn't going to happen. And I'm going to go over here, and then I'm just going to start clicking, hold down, and dragging this across the image. And you'll notice that it's picking up from where that crosshair is on that other image, okay? And it's doing it in alignment. Now what you'll notice happened here is that it took a little bit of this image and merged it with this image and then held on to some of the properties such as how faded back it is and kind of the color, the general color tone, so that it would fit into this environment nicely. Okay, now you might wonder, why would I want to even do that? Well, there's sometimes where you kind of want to merge and have kind of a bit of a see-through or a bit of a blending, but you want everything to kind of look seamless or like it belongs together. Now, if that's the case, the cool thing about this tool is that since you can sample from the other image and paste it over, you can actually get elements to combine. Now, if I were to go over into this lady's face here and just click and drag and cover over her face, you'll notice it just clearly replaces that. Even though it is merging some of the elements such as the color tone and all that, I'm not allowing myself to see through. And you would think, well, why would you even want to do that? Well, there's times, let me show you an example, where you might actually want that to happen, such as here, where you see a little bit of the person's image, but then you also see the texture that's placed on top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and undo, okay? And with this brush, with this tool, I'm going to actually go into the settings here, and instead of normal, I'm going to go ahead and change it to multiply. And what you'll notice is that when I try this again, it uses these layer modes and takes some of that texture and also some of that see-through and brings it over. I'm going to undo. You can try different ones such as screen and see what it gives you. Okay. All right, that's a little more subtle. Darken. Oh, that's too dark. And then lighten. And that's barely coming through. Okay. So as you can see, there's different options you can try here, and it appears that multiply is the one that seems to work the best. Okay. There we go. All right, we'll go ahead and leave that one alone. Now moving on, there is also this patch tool. This patch tool allows me to grab areas such as, let's say, this here that has that blemish. I can actually encapsulate it. I'm holding down, clicking and dragging, and then I'm going to release. And I've just gotten that area. It makes a selection here. I'm going to grab this. Notice it gave me an error. Make sure that you switch over to the layer that you want to affect. I didn't do that. I'm going to go ahead and name this one so I know which one I'm on. Okay. And now go ahead and click, hold down, and drag it. Okay. And notice that it automatically took some of this texture and replaced it with that one. I'm going to do Command D. Command D allows you to deselect. All right. So there you have it. You can do that same thing here. You can do, and then you just drag it to the area you want to pick up from. Usually somewhere close because it's more similar. If you do something here, see how it starts getting brighter? You don't want that. You want to pick somewhere kind of near a place that's clean, and you can deselect, Command D. Now another tool that we have here, if we go and click, hold down, and drag here, is this Content Aware tool. Content Aware, I'm going to use this example here of this girl. With this Content Aware tool, now you can use a selection that you already made like very clearly with the pen tool, because that's probably the best way to select something. But if not, you can actually do it on the fly with this tool. I'm just going to go ahead and click and hold down. I'm just clicking, hold down, and dragging, kind of like circling this area. Notice the cleaner your selection, the better it's going to do. I kind of cut into the arm there. The better it's going to work. This tool basically allows me to grab an object and reposition it, and then it'll replace the information in the areas where there's gap, and then kind of merge itself into the new area, okay? It's better illustrated when I show you, so I'm just going to show you in a little bit, but I'm going to release. It makes that selection. Notice, just like the lasso tool, I can add to the selection by holding down my Shift key and just circling the new area that I want to add to it here. Or I can remove, say that I went over a little bit here, I can remove by holding down the Alt key and circling the area I want to remove. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit here just to clean this up a little bit. And then remove there, add here, and then remove here. Okay. Now again, the best way to get a selection is with that mighty pen tool that you've learned to use. Look at the example on how to select with the pen tool if you haven't already. But this way you can actually just grab it. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm on these girls layer, and I'm going to title it girls. Okay, and then click it, hold down and drag it, and move it over and release it wherever you want it. Okay, I'm going to deselect. Notice it blended it in pretty nicely here. Anywhere where I didn't take the time to select, it kind of didn't do as well, as you can see here. But for the most part, it did a pretty good job just to shift things around, and it grabbed some information from behind and filled it in. Now here's where you could come back in with your clone tool, hold down Option, select, and then kind of replace all these areas, All right. All right. Now notice as I'm using this clone tool, notice that when I'm cloning and it's doing it very aggressively. It's just completely grabbing that information and pasting it here. You can adjust the opacity with which you clone, and that means that it won't clone at 100%. So say that I want to grab some information here and I paste it here. Notice it's doing it really lightly. I would have to go over it once and then go over it again for it to do anything more. But basically what happens is it will not clone anything more than 65% of the opacity of whatever I'm using. Okay. Notice also the edge is really rough. You can change in your brushes. You can go to a softer brush. You can change the hardness. If you lower the hardness, that means that it's basically becoming softer. And softer means that it's more fuzzy. It's a little bit more blurry on the edges. Then you can also affect the size. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you that now. I'm going to click on this cloud. I just sampled it, holding down my Alt key, and now I'm going to come here and notice it's copying it more fuzzy. Okay, so then I can go and do these. Okay, now notice it's not covering that up, so I'd probably want to shift my opacity back up. All right, and then decrease your size brush and just get in there, okay? So you can use all of these tools in combination, okay? So it's good to know all of them. Try to figure out which one works to do the bulk of the work, the easiest way, the fastest way possible. Because remember, in our field, time is money. And then kind of fine tune it with the other tools that are a little bit more specific and clean it up, okay? Now, I didn't finish cleaning it up here, but you get the idea. All right, so now lastly, the last tool I want to show you is this red eye tool. If you go into this compartment here, underneath the spot healing brush compartment, you'll find the red eye tool. And make sure that you select your girl layer and then just grab it and click, hold down, and draw to do like a little marquee here that'll kind of denote the area. It'll automatically detect what area is red eye and it will fix it. Notice it just went in here and fixed that area. Okay, I'm going to undo this. What you don't want to do is you don't just want to try to encapsulate that area because it'll make it just too small. I'm going to undo. You want to go ahead and grab a bigger area. Okay. All right. This concludes your lesson on tools that are used for repairing, such as the clone tool and the healing brush and the red eye tool. If you have any questions, iled@hawaii.edu or 808-343-9565.